Senator Todd Kaminsky. How are you?
Skye, how are you?
Joining us on Life Before the Virus.
Yeah, it's we're living definitely in crazy, unprecedented times, but I think we're learning a lot, and we're going to go through a tough period. So we all got to be tough, and we all got to sacrifice for each other.
So tell us what's going on in your area.
Well, there's just the need is tremendous all over the South Shore of Long Island. There are people that need to be fed. There are people that need PPE. There are medical professionals who have gone through a war and are continuing to work hard. And there's small businesses that are in the worst place they've ever been. So there's lots of work to do. Our state is in a very difficult place. I mean, I think spiritually we're united and we know what we have to do to protect each other and to get past this. But there are no easy answers. People think, all right, I know a number of people said, all right, so can I have my wedding in June, in July, in August? When do you think I'll be able to? And I just think that until we come to a different place medically with this virus, we all have to be prepared to live in an alternate and different and new reality. And we got to come to grips with that. And we're going to have to figure out how to get out of this economic situation we're in, which is going to be unprecedentedly bad, at least for those of us who weren't around in the Great Depression. And we're going to have to work hard and be strong through that.
So with all these different issues in the air, how do you go about your day-to-day and what issues to focus on, and how do you delegate with your staff?
Sure. So, I mean, I try to come to my office every day, and there's more to do than there are hours in the day, and there are more people that need help than we can get to. We just try to do the best we can, helping people with their unemployment claims, calling around to our first responders, asking what PPE they might need, figuring out where there are gaps in the law that we might be able to address legislatively or to write to the governor on, speaking to the county executive, the governor's office, figuring out what's happening, and being in touch with our not-for-profits who are really on the ground meeting incredible needs. I mean, we are feeding or being close to organizations that are feeding multiple numbers of people every day, multiple time numbers than they're used to feeding. I mean, there's real hurt, there's real need out there. And, just doing our best to try to serve all those who are in those situations.
And what about from an environmental perspective? I know that you're the chair of the Environmental Conservation Committee. So talk to us a little bit about the environment. I've heard people saying that there's less pollution now because we're not using as much machinery and we're not on the road. So
I was really happy to have written an op-ed that was in the Daily News last week about how green jobs are going to be important for helping us lead our way out of this. And there's no doubt that the climate change crisis we were going through and are still going through is not going away. And so we need to leverage the fight against one to help us in the fight in the other, meaning we need to use green jobs as a way to help us out of our economic depression that we're going to continually find ourselves in. I mean, these numbers, the unemployment numbers came out today, are staggering. I mean, they're unfathomable just a few months ago. So we need to be making those investments. And if we don't, the same way we're learning with resiliency on the South Shore of Long Island, we're going to pay more later if we don't do those things. So we're certainly all capable of transitioning over to that green economy. New York has made unprecedented steps. We passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act last year that sets the highest greenhouse gas reduction goals in the country. I'm really proud of that. But we are losing ground right now because we're not building those projects. We're not building those wind turbines. We're not building those solar arrays. We're not in our laboratories figuring out how to come up with the next great battery. So we're going to need to work harder on that. And I think it's worth the government investment now. I mean, every answer when you talk to people comes from the federal government. We need money for this and money for that. Tell them to send more money, and they are the answer in in a lot of situations. And they need to spend some of that on prioritizing green infrastructure, because it's great for our planet. It helps us fight that crisis, and it will put people to work.
What were some of the priorities and initiatives that you were spearheading before the pandemic?
I mean, it seems like another lifetime ago, but
Right.
Unfortunately, they're all important things that in this area are just take a step back, because the ultimate importance is keeping our most vulnerable people safe and keeping this virus at bay and flattening the curve. And that's not just a nice phrase. That means saving lives. But certainly, I was really psyched to work on a bill with District Attorney Tim Sinney from Suffolk and Steve Ballone about the first real anti-dumping criminal statute. They have real serious problems with corporate polluters literally dumping environmental hazardous waste into poor communities all over Suffolk County. Happens in Nassau too. I was, and it's actually not actually a crime to do that right now. There's no crime designated for that. And I was really excited to work on that. I was really excited to work on banning dangerous chemicals that have been poisoning babies and children that gets into the water supply. Lots of good stuff to do to continue the fight against climate change. And of course, there are, lots of other areas that I was, that would have been on the legislative agenda, such as I have a bill about teaching hate symbols in school. We had a real problem with hate speech and violent hate crimes last year against the Jewish community, against the Black community, and too often our students don't even know what these hurtful symbols actually mean and what their history is. Real excited to work on that, but we're right now just trying to put out the immediate fires we find ourselves surrounded by. So there's a lot at some point. Those will still be important issues, and I still hope to work on them. But right now, everyone's world is upside down, and we're trying to make sure people have the money to live week to week and the food for their families week to week, and make sure our essential workers are given priority and taken care of. I think that's a real important lesson of what we've been going through, is that people that our society too often took for granted are now showing themselves to be amazing heroes that we rely on every day, and they deserve the rights and the benefits and the salaries commensurate with that, and it's time we took that seriously.
So what are the most needed items in your district, and how could volunteers, if there's anyone out there who wants to volunteer, how could they help you?
Sure, I appreciate that. So we could certainly hook you up with not-for-profit organizations on the front lines. Our office also accepts donations in terms of material items like food, cleaning supplies, things like that. But definitely reach out to my office. It's Kaminsky@nysenate.gov. That's my email, and the need is just incredible. Yesterday I gave out, along with a great donor called Mad Men Barbershop, I gave out 3,000 masks in 35 minutes. And today there were a line of cars for food, basic staples, meat, eggs, milk, for about 3/4 of a mile wrapped around a block.
Now, are these mostly seniors? Is it a specific population that is the most in need?
Yeah, look, my district runs the gamut. I have some nicer, wealthier areas, places like Hewlett Harbor, and I've got much tougher areas that are census poverty tract. So you certainly find in the areas that are hit hardest and that have more public housing and have more seniors who, are dependent on their fixed income, you're seeing a real need there. But we're seeing everybody all across the board. People that have never called our office before are people that have, because what this virus does is it's not only about income, but some people literally can't go out of their homes. They may be immunocompromised or been told they can't leave. So we're finding people in all types of precarious situations, and people that may have been economically fine 2 months ago, are now 2 months into not having a paycheck or whatever above the government assistance they needed to live on. Just really not that much. So we find that the need is great. We find it runs across our whole district. Certainly our poorer and more senior citizens are more in need, and we're doing our best with them. And our charities are stepping up. I mean, everybody who can, that we've been working with that you expect who's doing great, they're just crushed by the demand. So it's just we really need everybody to help. Everyone has a place in, pulling for their neighbors right now. And I appreciate you asking that question.
Yeah, of course. And what about Northwell Health? I know that you've been involved in a couple different initiatives, and what are they working on now? Is it the testing? Is it plasma? Is it the antibody testing? What's the focus?
Well, my partnership with Northwell was on a mental health clinic that a bunch of high schools joined so that they would have really first-rate mental health care, school-based mental health care for a bunch of surrounding school districts. And mental health still matters. And so I definitely urge people, if they need help getting connected to mental health services, to reach out as well. Mount Sinai South Nassau is the main hospital in my district, but Northwell does have LIJ and Valley Stream. We went over and bought just a tiny little thing, but we bought the nurses in both hospitals ice cream for an afternoon to give them a little break and to thank you. And it was really nice to see them, have a smile for a minute. But everyone's working as hard as they can, and thankfully the curve has come down, but we got to keep it that way. And I think we learned a lot about our healthcare system in terms of building in more capacity, which I think is important. I've argued that an abandoned building that used to be the Long Beach Medical Center should be converted back into a medical center of some kind, so we have the flexibility to add beds when needed. We're going to continue to work on that.
Mhm.
So all of our hospitals, including the Catholic Health System and Mercy, have been doing extraordinary work. They just got some federal reimbursement funding. We hope it'll do the job and make sure that they're well compensated and well supplied, but they were certainly the front line.
And about mental health, and specifically, are there still resources for high school kids, but for everyone? I mean, I know that mental health is taking a toll on a lot of people. So what are some of those resources?
Yeah, so the state has a mental health hotline, and there are also a number of organizations locally that can help out. If anyone's interested, once again, email me at kaminsky@nysenate.gov, and we'll get you hooked up with that. And please don't hesitate for a minute. We're a no judgment zone. We just want to get you the services you need, and mental health is as real as any other type of health. So please reach out if you need it. If you have a domestic violence situation, please reach out. And if you're hungry or know anyone who is, reach out as well.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing. It really sounds like you got it all covered, and we really appreciate you being out there helping everyone.
Yeah, it's totally different because we're used to being up in Albany, passing bills, marking them up, debating them, having hearings, and it's a totally different type of work. But it's just as exhausting, maybe even harder, and there's just not enough hours in the day to help all the people that are in need. But I'm proud to be part of this greater Long Island community, proud to be working with our neighbors, helping other people, and we just got to continue to be patient, stick to the rules, wear your mask when you go outside, and be there for each other.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Guy. Really appreciate it.